Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, good Saturday afternoon, and welcome to the show. Today's the 10th of April, 2021. Thank you for tuning in. Now, listen, there's places out in Utah, in the desert out there, where quite seriously you can drive, and it's like 50 miles to the nearest town one way, 50 miles back to the nearest town the other way, and there's nothing but sandstone, desert, and whatever, maybe a few scrub trees and stuff. Nothing there. A picture of a man was driving across the desert like that, and he left the town, and he stopped for gas, and he filled up. When he wasn't looking, say he had enemies out there someplace, and the guy poured sugar in his gas tank. So he's headed out into the desert, and he gets about halfway out there, about 50 miles out, and his car starts to clunk. The engine starts to clunk because it's being filled up with gum from the sugar in the gas tank. The gasoline system in a car is what makes a car run, the gas, the energy running through. And if it gets plugged or something gets wrong with it, seriously wrong with it, well, you're going to be broken down suddenly. And it's going to come suddenly, and you're going to break down in the middle of the desert, and you're going to have, out in the middle of Utah, in the middle of nowhere, and you're going to be stuck. And there's very difficult to fix it because your entire fuel tank is gummed up with sugar, your fuel line's gummed up, your fuel pump's gummed up, and your engine's gummed up. It's a mess. A total mess. Because fuel is what makes your vehicle run. It makes it go. So you're not going anywhere. You're going to have to try to get a tow truck out in the middle of the desert. Good luck with that. We're running into the same situation here in the world. Instead of gasoline that makes the world run, what makes the world run is dollars. Or, depends on what country you're in. If you're in Europe, it's the euro that makes the system run. If you're in England, it's the Great British Pound. If you're in Japan, it's the yen. All these Western currencies, though, were all at one time linked to the dollar, and the dollar was linked to gold back in 1971 when Nixon took us off the gold standard. And, that system back then, yes, it was faulted and it wasn't the best in the world, but it worked. When they took us off the gold standard, Nixon said this is going to be a temporary measure. There wasn't anything temporary about it. We're still on it, and that was way back in 1971. A lot of people probably in my audience weren't even born when Nixon took us off the gold standard. Okay, so what is the problem is here is money is like the fuel to that car that's running across the desert. And if there's a flaw in the money, then the whole system could break down around it because the whole system runs everything runs on money. So I was sitting here thinking there the last 24 hours. I'm sitting there thinking, my mind's been mulling it over. I'm thinking about Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies. And I was thinking to myself, what if we have a catastrophic failure of all of the fiat currencies of the West? The yen, the Great British Pound, because they're all linked to the dollar. All of these fiat currencies over here in the West, what if we have a catastrophic failure and they all go into a hyperinflation, including the dollar? Well, I got thinking, people are not going to stop trade. People are going to continue with trade. But what if parts, not all, but what if parts of the power grid, because we saw this happen in Venezuela, when they underwent their hyperinflation. Parts of their power grid went down for gosh knows how long. People are going to still trade even if the power grid's down. Because commerce has to go on. We have to feed ourselves. Let's face it, right? So I got thinking about Bitcoin, And there is a serious... One of Bitcoin's potential great things is it can be transmitted across the internet. It's a great thing for Bitcoin, but it also has a serious flaw. And the serious flaw is it can be transmitted only across the internet. Gold and silver have been around here for 7,000 years. We've been trading and using it. It's fungible. It's a safe store of value and everything else. I got thinking about this for a minute. I said to myself, hey, you know what? Even more than gold, silver is the people's money. Pure physical silver. Thinking about this for a minute, I said, what if the power grid goes down in certain areas for extended periods of time because we're having some sort of a hyperinflationary system breakdown? Almost like the guy that's driving across the desert, you know, and his car goes clunk, 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 and it's all full of sugar in the gas tank. And everything's gummed up. Well, this could gum everything up in our financial system. If our currencies start to become worthless at a very, very steady pace. I'll tell you, the other day, I went, there's a fellow that I've known for years and years and years. And he works in the industry of building materials and stuff, you know. Hardware, building materials, things like plywood, 2x4s, and everything else. I got talking to him, and you know what he said? He said it's awfully, awfully hard to price things. The price is moving so quick that to give a quote, it can change in a day or two. It's making it difficult. And it's not changing to go down, guys. Price quotes are changing to go up. So, you know, I think we're entering in fact, I think we've already entered in, most people can't see it, to what's called the acceleration phase to a hyperinflation. And a hyperinflation generally is the same, it's going to work the same way as when your fuel system gets gunked up in the middle of the Mojave Desert or out in the middle of Utah. You got problems. And this is the problems we're going to face when our money stops working. Now, Jim Rickards, he wrote a book called The Death of Money. And that's exactly what we're facing. Because it really isn't money. It's currency. Money is gold and silver. And I guess where I'm going at with this talk is, you know, if we face tremendous hardships because the whole Western world goes into some sort of a crazy hyperinflation, right? And maybe you have to do things you'd never expected. And I'm going to tell you guys, if you're living right now, if your nearest neighbor's 10 miles away, you got a winner. That house is a winner. Okay, that's great. You know, you're lucky. You're lucky. If your nearest neighbor's 100 miles away, you're even luckier. I'm going to tell you, honestly. We may have to do things we never thought of. But if you're in an urban setting where people are piled on top of people, this is not good, guys. It's not good. For what's coming. What's coming is going to be bad. Seriously bad. Because when money dies, like Jim Rickards wrote the book, The Death of Money, when money dies, money is what runs the system, runs everything, runs your power grid company. If your power grid company goes bankrupt, they're not going to leave the lights on, or things like happened in Texas could start happening. And then what happens to Bitcoin? Because people are going to continue on with commerce, and if the dollar's not worth anything, and Bitcoin, you can't utilize it because the power grid's down or telecommunications are down or whatever. You know what they're going to do, don't you? They're going to go back to not so much gold, silver is where they're going to go. It's been the people's money for thousands of years. And let's face it, you want to do a little bit of commerce. And say you got a gold coin, a 1 ounce gold coin. Do you want to trade that for the bag of rice? Or would you rather trade your 1 ounce gold silver coin for the bag of rice? Because I'll tell you, if the system starts to break down like that, it's going to be hard to make change. Well, you take change in, and you might say, well, okay, you got a gold coin you want to trade with me, right, for my bag of rice. I'll give you change in dollars. And you're like, oh, no. No, he says, no. Here, I got a wheelbarrow full of them. This is where we're going. This is where we're going, guys. And I know it's kind of hard to believe. Kind of hard to get your head around it. We're seeing the start of it now. I mean, for years I've been preaching this. I've been talking about this going back for maybe what, 7, 8 years on here I've been talking about this, saying it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. But we couldn't see it yet. Now we're getting so close, you can start to actually see the effects of prices increasing on a very rapid rate. Like you might go to Amazon and say you want to buy a TV. You go there today, it's $280. You go there tomorrow, and it's $299.50. You know, like it's not a sudden thing. It's a thing that where you're starting to notice it, and it's starting to accelerate. That's why they call it the acceleration phase. But when this really gets bad, guys, you got to start thinking about your house. Think about where your house is located. What sort of a neighborhood are you in? You know, now some people are lucky and they're going to have really good neighbors and really nice neighborhood, and it's not overpopulated. It might be a good place during the hyperinflation, but you also have to have a plan B. Okay, so if something happens, if you don't know what could happen in your particular neighborhood, you might have to get out of Dodge. And plan B is to get out of Dodge. In other words, bug out. Might be plan B. So you got to plan for plan A and plan B, right? And now there's something that you got to remember, guys. You only need about 3 or 4 things to survive through this. You need water. And you know what? You can make water. You can make water if you can make charcoal. But you got to be careful what kind of wood you use. You can make charcoal by building a campfire and then dousing the campfire out when it gets down to the coal stage. You know, the hot embers in the bottom of the campfire? You put them out with cold water. And you pick up those chunks later after they're out. Right? And you can make charcoal. Charcoal is the main ingredient for water filtration. Then all you need is a container. You got to make sure your container is food-grade plastic. Right? And there's a lot of containers of food-grade plastic. Your old pop bottles are food-grade plastic. Right? And your water bottles, food-grade plastic. And make sure it's food-grade plastic and use gravity. Gravity is what you put the water in at the top, and the water comes out the bottom, and it goes down through the filtration, which is your charcoal. But you got to have layers to slow it down. Generally, layers of clean filtered sand is what you use. So you put a layer of filtered sand on the top of the charcoal, and then what happens is that slows the water down, and the water trickles through the charcoal and comes out the other end. And then after it comes out the other end, then you just give it a quick boiling. You got to boil it too, you know. And then you got good, more than likely, in a pinch, I would drink that water rather than drink water out of the ditch. So you need water to survive. That's one of the main things you need to survive. Second thing is you need food. You don't need the kind of food we got now. McDonald's hamburgers and all that kind of stuff. But you need food that's going to fill your belly, you know. And you're going to need a lot of it probably to last you through the hyperinflation. And you know, one of the things I preach on here and I talk about is oatmeal. Oatmeal's wonderful. Dried oatmeal lasts a long time if you put it away in a dry, don't let it freeze. Don't let it get too hot. Put it away in a dry spot, a dry, dark spot, you know, and where no bugs or anything can get at it or anything, you know. And it's cheap. You can still go to Walmart and buy a big bag of oatmeal for like $2. Do you know how many days that'll feed you? That'll feed you the best part of a week. Great big bag of oatmeal, you know, and it goes a long way toward filling your belly. Things like rice, these dried foods are great. But you also need vitamin C. You need vitamin C, so you need a big bottle of vitamin C tablets. You know? And you need vitamin D. You need a number of vitamins that you need to take. Especially if you're on some sort of a diet of emergency foods. Because you're not going to be getting a lot of fruits and vegetables if you're on that kind of a diet, you know? So you got to think about these things. And you got to have a plan A and a plan B in this situation that they've created. They actually, I just think it's a whole big series of unfortunate events that have led us to this point where the money has been corrupted and there's nowhere for it to go. Basically, this is like a guy driving down a cul-de-sac or a one-way street down that ends, a street that ends. You get down that end and it's just a dead end street. That's where the dollar's going, to this dead end street, and ends in hyperinflation. There's two ways it can go. They can let the system completely collapse, whereas they don't feed the hyperinflation, or they can continue to feed the hyperinflation until the dollar slowly gets worth less and less and less and less. That's the direction they're going. But this is a dead end road. There is no way out. There's no escaping this until the dollar's worth zero. Or we have a complete and utter collapse of the system. This is just the way this is, and it's all a question of timing. How long is this going to take? And the final stages of this might surprise you, because it might move rather quickly in the final stages, even though it took years and years to get here. In the final stages, what a hyperinflation really is people lose confidence in the purchasing power of the fiat currencies. And once that happens, it can happen very, very quickly. And that's where we're almost at, is that final stage. And so you've got probably about, I say you probably got about a year or a year and a half left, but I might be wrong. It might come in quick. It could come in early. Or maybe I'm forecasting it a bit early. Maybe it might take 3 years. But it's coming. This is the point I want to get across to you guys. It's coming. And you've got to have your plans in place, what you're going to do to protect yourself and your family. And, I've been thinking about it an awful lot, and I think silver is the way to go. Real physical silver. I love this. That's the stuff that you need. That's what you're going to need to survive, I think. Better than anything, And if you want to dabble in cryptocurrencies, go ahead and dabble in it a little bit, but be awful careful. Because, heck, if you don't know what you're doing, you can send your Bitcoin off into oblivion. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you guys in the very next show. Bye-bye.